Well, welcome everyone to Significo's Data-Driven Innovation in Healthcare Livestream. My name is Adrienne Lindsay Carr, and I am the Campaign and Content Marketing Manager here at Significo. We also have our VP of Marketing here, Michael Robin Manning, for backup tech support if needed. Just to give you all a high-level overview of our agenda today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to our live stream hosts in just a minute. Then they will have a conversation centered around data-driven innovation in healthcare, and we will end our conversation today with a Q&A, so you can feel free to ask any questions or ask them to expound upon any points mentioned in the live stream. Post live stream today, you should see a quick survey. If you have time, we would love your feedback. If you can fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our hosts. Let's see. Dr. Jana Schmidt is a passionate medical science data scientist with close to 2 decades of experience in data mining, machine learning, and medical data. Currently serving as the Chief Innovation Officer at Significo, Jana is responsible for spearheading the development of health recommendation engine Recco, overseeing process monitoring and leading data evaluation efforts. Known for her expertise in data security, data insights generation, business insights, and effective team management, Jana has been instrumental in driving impactful initiatives in the healthcare industry.
Thank you.
And next, we have Rick McCartney. Rick McCartney is the Chief Executive Officer at Significo, a health technology company with offices in Berlin, Germany, Austin, Texas, and Spain. With a strong emphasis on utilizing technology for innovative solutions, Rick and his international team have been pivotal in driving advancements in health technology. A nurse practitioner by training, Rick has expertise in community health and psychiatry. He has played key roles in various research studies, including the effects of diabetes on brain function and cognition, and on quality improvement at digital therapeutic publishers. So please welcome everyone, Rick and Jana.
Thank you. Jana, we should have people introduce us before each time we meet. A nice setting of the stage. Excited for getting the chance to spend 40 minutes or so with all of you during this time. Excited, Jana, to get a chance to chat through the journey we've been on for the past several years. And it's been fun preparing for this and getting to go through and kind of acknowledge all of that journey that we've had together. So we just wanted to start with a little bit of preview of kind of where the product is at right now, what we're doing, and then we're going to walk through some of the background, like how we got to where we are today. And so Recco, we seek out giving the right recommendations at the right time to the right people. And we wanted to really try to meet people where they're at. And we're going to talk through some of the ways that we evolved, how we do that. We started with a very kind of data only focus, and then we learned ways that we needed to augment that. And so we also, I think, as we try to have true for most things that we develop, we try not to develop things just because we had an idea. And so I think it's important to note that this product came out of a lot of pain felt by a lot of different customers and people who are trying to do something meaningful in the market. And building something and then having it fall flat or having it lack, really the user delight that we like to have when we build products, in seeing kind of common threads between different products and ways that building one suite of tools could really help enable lots of products for lots of existing and potential future customers. So that was kind of some of the background here. We built something that we're proud of, that we really like. But we wanted to share a little bit about our failures, our learnings, things along the way, in hopes that maybe some of you that are also setting out to do similar things can perhaps prevent having some of the same failures that we had and get to have your own learnings along the way. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about some of the research projects that we've worked on in the past several years, some of what we learned, and kind of how we got to the current state of things?
Of course. So thank you again for that introduction. And Rick is absolutely right. It has been a long journey that we are still pursuing currently. And it all started actually in 2018 already, when we had the questions from the market that there's something needed for the aging population. You all know that everyone is going to be sicker, and we want actually to be in front of the disease, and we want to prevent that people get sicker. So we were thinking about like creating a communication platform. This was our first and initial idea, to help people to stay healthy. And how do we want to do it? We wanted, of course, apply machine learning to the bunch of data that we had to identify which person would benefit from which health action or intervention that was out in the market. So we applied for a specific grant from the European Union, and we got it. We were super excited in 2019. And what we wanted explicitly do there is to develop a new machine learning model that helps us to select the next best recommendation or health action that someone can do or pursue to stay healthy. And we won that, and we started immediately. I think the day after we had the contract signed with the European Union, we started to implement that stuff. But very quickly, we observed that our initial approach, that was data focused only on a communication platform, was not the right way to pursue that. And because and that's probably on my plate here, because I'm a data scientist, of course, I only take data into consideration at first, but we didn't look at the users at the beginning. And that's why we increased, or we made this project bigger, and not only creating a machine learning protocol that identifies the next best recommendation, but also to check what the user interface needs to look like. And we created a suitable forum to interact with the user, which is not a platform, obviously, because no one's using, or maybe there are easier ways to use platforms or to interact with the users. And we also checked that data that we actually wanted to use was not the best suitable data for this perspective, because we needed more data for this. And so we also increased our team there and included more of health expertise together with the university that we were working with, to collect the correct data with the new product that we created to essentially train our machine learning model. And then in the next step, we, of course, as this project got bigger and bigger, we observed that we need another funding to go into more details about how to interact with the user best. Because we know that our lifestyle is very different from each other, and we are also receptive to different forms of interactions. So we applied to another funding that was specially tailored for finding the correct time point and the correct medium to address health issues for the user. And sorry?
I don't mean to cut you off, but I also don't want to pass up a potential opportunity. Could you perhaps share about that moment when you realized that like data alone wasn't going to be enough? You alluded to it a little bit, and I know some of the journey, but I think for our audience's benefit, can you tell me, can you share a little bit about kind of what went into that conclusion?
Yeah, so I do have, as Adrian already said, I do have worked with a bunch of medical data for different perspectives. So I worked with image data, I worked with health records, I worked with claims data, I worked with interviewing protocols and population studies. But I realized in this time point that this data was collected over a time, and then it was used for a specific purpose. And if we want to go into like a companionship with the user, we want to support them on a long way, then it's not enough to just once collect data, then give a recommendation or whatever, and then let the user be. And even if we do it on standardly collected data, that's not enough. So that was where the colleagues from the universities and psychologists came into place. And then this was like, oh, I was really like I cannot express that correctly without using rude words, but yeah.
I think you're in a safe space.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit shocked how we could oversee something like this important, because we paid enough attention on the technique, on the platform, on the machine learning, on the data that we actually had. And then it was like this, oh, actually we need more data and different databases. But we took a deep breath and then we said, okay, then we need to go in this direction, and we need to find a method to interact with the user more frequently and to collect the correct data with the user at the correct time point. And that's why actually, and Rick, there you go, we went with the second research project that was also a German funding here. And then with the second project, we were also going, so when do we need to talk to the users? Because with our initial product that we had, we observed that user had different engagement patterns here. So we wanted to find out with whom we need to talk when about which topic. And moreover, we had quite a lot of contacts to health insurances, and they made very clear that their data showed, and this is what we could also observe in our research database, that medication patterns are not as good as they could be. And this also leads to a tremendous decrease in health status of people. So this was our second, let's say, medical point that we wanted to address. We wanted to encourage the users to take their medication as described by lowering the medication intake barriers here. So, and this research project is close to the end, so we are not really done with it because, you know, COVID struck, and then we had a little extension here, but I think we found several good models about how to approach the users best. And of course, we had a general view on health sustainability in the first research project, where we built up a good infrastructure and good machine learning models to select recommendations. But this is the second thing that we observed. We need such a lot of recommendations, and we already have very good recommendations, but we need more, because although people are very similar, they can be addressed in different states on their health journey, as we say. And that's why we applied for a third funding, which is the HealthX Data Loft funding, where we explore different domains, I can say, of health, and to be able to dive deeper in what really helps people when managing their health. And the HealthX Data Loft project is also part of a European Union project that supports the creation of health data spaces throughout Europe, and especially the use cases in there. So, and you can see that the end of this project is in 2024. So we have quite a lot of research ongoing. And there we really want to dive into to establish an end-to-end content pipeline that makes sure that we catch up with every health topic that users could have. And now you can go to the next slide. And okay, so on the left-hand side here, this is just a summary, but where are we right now? I would say that we are not at the end at all, but we are at a very good step. Because we understand what the users want, what they need, and what is successful in supporting the users. And we are very proud to have Recco now, which is a software development kit that can be integrated in health apps and platforms. And actually, within Recco, all of that research work that I just explained is included. We have a recommendation engine that comprises expert models and machine learning models that are medically approved with our health experts that we have at Significo to give a good recommendation or the best next recommendation for the user. And we are doing that by assessing the health status of the individual users. I think there is still room for improvement because currently we are using questionnaires, and we also observe that not everyone likes questionnaires. I do. I have to admit that I do like questionnaires, but still there's we are taking this health status, and then we are giving very specific recommendations that are actionable. So users are not left alone with some kind of insight about, or like a very broad recommendation, but they really can do very specific things. And what we are addressing here is not only the prevention of future diseases of users, but also managing chronic conditions in a way what you can do with a healthy lifestyle, for instance, right? So I think that we are in a very good place. And if you now go to the next slide, right, you can see that our AI system, or the recommendation engine that we have created, is able to combine different models depending on the context of Recco. That means that we have established several models, and they are combined in a unique way that best serves the context of the user, let it be in an employment platform, or in a health insurance, or maybe in an app that is completely uncoupled to another platform. And we are able to identify the right time point to interact with the user, and also the frequency that the user wants to be engaged with.
Yeah, and I have a question that I know we get often, and it's in the industry, especially in technology, and maybe even more so in health. AI and machine learning are thrown around a lot. Most companies say that they're doing something related to AI, and could you share a little, and I think everybody kind of knows that oftentimes there's not a lot of substance behind that, right? Like there's a lot of ways that you could potentially say that you're doing AI, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Can you share a little bit about kind of your approach and our approach to AI, and what we're doing, what we're not doing, in case we have anyone in the audience that's kind of curious of a little bit of a deeper dive into what we mean when we talk about our AI system?
Absolutely. So Rick points out a very important thing that I absolutely support. AI is currently the unique thing that everyone wants to do, and usually this including some kind of library that is delivered by Python or by any other programming language, and then say, oh, we are using AI. So, but the way to really make it usable is to know your data, to get analytics on your data, to gain insights, to really dig into that bunch of suited data, or transform it in a way that you actually can understand it. And that is, I think, 80% also of the work that we are doing with the data. So we are really trying to get insights from the data, and not just applying any machine learning model on that. So, but really to make to our product managers understandable why users are reacting in a specific way, where they have problems, what type of groups of user groups do we have in the data, how do we need to tailor the product that we serve and the content that we have for them, so that gaining these insight actually hasn't to do so much with machine learning, but it makes the users more understandable. And then we have the 20% where we know, okay, now we have created a bunch of content, and now we need some kind of model that gives this content in the best way to the user. And here again, I like to talk about this because the trick is here not just to choose any kind of model, but to choose the correct optimization function. So what we want to do is we want to have a long-term effect on the health of people. We want to drive their engagement with Recco. And this is our quality function that we have here, right? And what I have observed with quite a lot of students that I have done their master thesis with is that they're just using a library and they are using it with the parameters that are there without really understanding and knowing. And this is what I really want to point out. We are using this data to understand the users, to mathematically describe what we want to achieve, and use this function then as our optimization in machine learning models. And of course, as I said, in the first project, this European Union project, we established or created a completely new type of model that is not to be found in any of the existing libraries. It's a timed event model where there's quite a little, it's a how do you say it, it's the outer space of the machine learning community. It has nothing to do with black box models and like deep learning and so on. It is very comprehensible by humans, so that we can discuss it with our medical experts and they can also gain insights for specific user groups.
Awesome, thank you. That's helpful. Do you have a name for this AI approach, or is there kind of a well-known kind of term that's used to describe it in similar things?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's well known in the machine learning community, because in the last, I think, 5 to 10 years, everyone just turned into the deep learning section. And the conferences that I attended where the alternative machine learning models are also discussed, their fraction is shrank quite a bit. So it's a timed automaton type of model, and there is some literature. There is a group in the Netherlands that also has quite a lot of experience with that, but this is the foundation. If you want to Google it, you can have it. I can also send you the links for it. And we did extend this type of model to really serve our purposes.
Yeah, I think something that I'll just reflect for everyone is that as a healthcare provider and as someone who is primarily doing clinical work, I think being able to take an approach to machine learning that took what's known in the medical community, how people interact, and then apply learning that can be observed and comprehended by other experts, really made a lot of sense to me. I think Jan and I really connected early on in saying, you know, as a medical professional, I feel much better about saying, hey, I'm putting people through the experience of this, and I know how we got there, and I know what we can do to prevent it from going off the rails, as opposed to, well, it goes into the system and there's no real way to know, you know, what's going to happen to it and what the system will do with it, and you just need to trust that your patients are going to get what they're supposed to get. I think that to me felt very risky. I'm not the most risk-averse medical professional, but I still like to know what I'm putting my people in front of. And so I think this model really spoke to me as a medical professional, being able to say, I can understand it, therefore I can explain to my patients why it makes sense and why it's something that I would support them engaging with.
Absolutely. And I very like that Rick even remembers the name, although I presented this type of model like years ago to him. And that that makes me feel also, yeah, very comfortable, because it's understandable what we are doing, and not a black box stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and I was impressed with me earlier
yes.
this week when I recalled her presentation from 2018. So yes.
I just want to highlight like the last topic here is we are not focusing on single diagnosis, right? So, and this is also very important, because we know that as a human, we are living a living being that is in an environment and having multiple factors coming to my health, right? And this is, of course, I can concentrate on managing my diabetes, but my diabetes is also influenced by my hypertension, by my daily activity, by my nutrition, my relationship to my friends, whatever. So this is what we really pay attention to, that we see the user as in a whole, right? And not only like one outcome variable, which could be diabetes, and that's it, because everything influences the body, right? The human body. It's all interconnected, and this is where we pay attention to.
I think it's fascinating to think about all the ways that we're very unique, but also quite similar. And we were talking about this earlier, but the idea that, what the right recommendation at the right time for the right person means something different to each person at any given time. But the realm of what could be reasonable, healthy actions for people to take is fairly well established, because we're all human. We all have pretty similar biology, and the things that make us the things that make us sick are similar, and the things that make us healthy are similar. Therefore, there's a nice set of parameters there for us to work with it.
Absolutely. So, Adrian, if you could click. Yeah. So the human factor, of course, for us is super important. And Rick, you want to add here? I just want to point out again the data-driven product development. So as I'm a data scientist by heart, and I really love digging into the data, I, of course, pursue to support the further development of Recco by data. And still, I had to learn as a computer scientist that we need to take the user into account. This is actually at Significo, I feel a very good teamwork. And of course, we had to learn how to combine different perspectives and how to make it work. But the data is some kind of foundation, but it's not everything. But still, if we want to look at our users, this gives us a very good direction of where we want to go.
Yeah, and I think about the idea of like also expanding those data inputs. I think in clinical settings, we might refer to like our internal stethoscope, or dream about a medical nose that could detect C. diff on being brought onto a unit or into an exam room. And in reality, there are data points that are being brought in. If I walk into a patient's room and they look sick to me, and I immediately know, hey, check their oxygen levels. Something's wrong with this person. My eyes are noticing specific things. I may not be able to label it immediately and say, hey, this, this, and this are what I'm seeing and responding to. But it's not just intuition, right? Like it is me responding to a set of specific data inputs. And I think that's been fun for us to work on together is, there's certain hard and fast data points that, maybe that's the more quantitative side of the data analytics and the data that we have available. And then there's additional qualitative inputs, like, what's the look on the user's face when they land on a certain page, right? And how long do they pause before moving? And do they, click on the next page within 1 second, but they almost click 3 other places first? Like, how can we capture some of those other user experience and user delight data points and incorporate that in as well? Because yeah, I mean, you can have the best, the best tool, but if no one can use it, then you're not going to get your desired impact from it. So I think that it's been important for us to learn and working together. I really like analytics and data and watching things, but I have a high sensitivity to user experience pain, right? If someone sees something and it's a blocker and they're gonna delete an app or walk out of the clinic and never come back in, like, give them a chance to get in and experience some delight, and then you have all the chance in the world. So I think that was it was a fun learning for us together, but also we had very kind of different perspectives coming into this collaboration.
Yeah, and if we want to be very transparent here, so the first approach of our user interface that we created looks pretty different that we have it right now, because we did a lot of user tests and experience that the element of gamification that we want to bring in there to make this experience more enjoyable actually wasn't making it more enjoyable, for instance. So we dropped it, and now we have a completely different look and feel of our interface that we had before. And I also want to add on what Rick said, which is here the bullet point number 3. We are all individual, and I assume, or I think, that our individuality is the combination of different patterns that we have. Like, my health status may be similar to several others, and my way of interacting with specific digital tools can be similar to others, right? And all of these combinations of patterns make us individual, but at the bottom, we exhibit all specific patterns, like Rick said. So our body is a biochemical machine, and we are prone to use specific things as we are used to it, or how we like it. And that's why I think we can very well apply pattern mining or machine learning for specific parts. But we need to have other modules or more methods to address other patterns of interaction or digital tools here. And I think this is important, one very important thing that we have learned. But go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to ask if there are some examples of ways that data only got us so far, and we needed that kind of human interaction in there to break us through to the next barrier. If there's anything specific that came to mind for you.
Yeah, as I said before, we had this bunch of data, but we couldn't really make it applicable to the user, because this data actually occurred when it was too late. So we need to find a way to interact earlier with the data, with the user. And there again, we needed to check out what is the best way to collect this data from the people. Or I'm a fan of numbers and charts, and that's obvious. So I thought that everyone would love charts, but it was not the case. So we had to adopt this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in case anybody missed it there, either in the first time as you're explaining or now, that idea of the data curve too late, or I think the way that I think about it is it's one thing to be able to say, this person should have done this at this time.
Absolutely.
And it's another thing to be able to let that person know in the moment that they can actually do something about it, that, hey, this action is going to affect your risk. And so what you do at this moment in time matters, because we've modeled this out millions of times, and we've seen that for the people that don't take this action in this moment that you're at right now, they end up down this curve. And you have the opportunity to kind of adjust that a little bit. And yeah, I think that's important. Was a really important learning for us.
That was really important. And I remember that you were really focused on that, because I was so data driven and you put the emphasis on the user. And I was more like this, oh, this is what you should do. And Rick said, hey, but we need to motivate or to really outline to the user what are the consequences or the possibilities if something is not considered. And we also have a very good colleague that I always have in mind that adds on this, there is some kind of motivation to do something, and how can we encourage the user and lower their barriers to do something that is beneficial for them. And there's a lot of research out there that we could luckily incorporate through our research fundings that we had. to make this happen. But I think Rick saying, hey, the user needs to have a choice is super important. We cannot force them. That's true. And that's why we really need to take care that user understand why we are recommending stuff and what their benefits are when they can do it. And still then they are free to choose.
Yeah, I think it's that desire to be motivational instead of, even if we do know what they should do, making the person feel that we have a paternalistic approach is not likely to engage them in the process of being motivated to actually change their behavior. So finding ways to take motivational literature and research and implement it into interfaces and user experiences to actually have the user benefit from what we know about how their risk will change if they change their behaviors. So yeah, that's fun. It's fun work.
Absolutely. Adrian, could you go to the next slide, please? Okay. And I said it before, we still have funding. We have quite a lot of user feedback, and we are very clear about where we want to go next. And I will talk a little bit about bullet points 2 and 3, and Rick is going to talk about bullet point 1, but I go in first. Because what we also see that what we were talking about 1 minute ago is the motivation to really address your personal health. And currently we are focusing on we are switching. So, but we have been focusing on health literacy, right? So this is super essential. Without health literacy, you cannot change anything, because you need that knowledge how you can do something good for your body and for your overall health and for your well-being. However, research shows that just consuming health literacy is not enough. You need to have some support, different motivation strategies. You need to let the knowledge sink in, to really think about it, to find ways to integrate that in your life. And this is nothing that is done right away or within 15 minutes. So we want to extend our interactions with the user by, I call them conversational elements that guide or support the user on their journey. You can surely imagine it like a little bit of cheerleading on their way, but you need this constant support and motivation that you go on your journey. And I can just repeat it. I'm a data scientist. I like charts. So that's why I also like to see what I have already accomplished. But I'm absolutely aware that not everyone wants to see some stacked bar chart somewhere. So our recommendation engine that is in the background will in future recommend not only the very specific health interaction or health literacy that you will use at your specific time point, but also different interaction times to motivate you to stay on your health journey, so that we can really guide the user for a very long time, because we are aware that behavior change or health motivation, or however you want to call it, is not done within a couple of months. So you really need some time there. And Rick, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, this first point of applying the product learnings to our processes, we were able to do a lot of really cool things with data, predicting risk, and then extrapolating from that behaviors that could affect that risk profile with a certain level of certainty. And that took a lot of focus on analysis, learnings, understanding what the next best step was for a user of our products, the people that we serve. But I think we also had a time where, for product and like product vision and product road mapping, there's a lot of like, well, X person has Y opinion about what we should be doing. And opinions are fine, but everyone's got them. And just because you have an opinion doesn't necessarily mean it's a good one. And as a team, if we just respond to the person with the loudest voice or the strongest opinion, that could lead us in places that we really don't want to be going, that aren't best for our users, that aren't best for the products that we're building. And so I think really figuring out ways to collect data from users, from analytics that we're doing, from customers that we're speaking to, and make sure that we're being really data driven and figuring out what's the next best step on our roadmap and for a feature based on that main goal of getting the right recommendations to the right person at the right time. I think has helped us to understand, hey, we need to have, multiple different types of interactions, multiple different types of content, meet different people where they're at based on what their preferences are, their background is, things like that. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that, like, it's not enough to be really good at doing it within the product. We need to make sure that we're taking that similar approach to how we build products, how we prioritize things. I oftentimes frustrate my team when they ask me if I think something's a good idea, and I ask them to share with me their logic, their reasoning, their framework, how they are evaluating decisions, and to help me understand how they came to this conclusion, right? That this is the best next thing to do. So I do think that's just, from my perspective, it's really important that we do that in road mapping and product development, in addition to just within making sure that the product does that well for its users.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third bullet point here, I think is also very important, because this is something that we have, of course, known, but really experienced in the projects that we did with our users and clients together, that an individual person can only do what an individual person can do. And this sounds simple, but actually it implies that there are factors from our environment that we cannot alter. But for our personal health, it would be better if they could be adjusted in some way. And that's why we are implementing insights in our back office for our clients specifically, so that they can support their people as well in their health journey. And this recommendations on a population level or on a company level, we could say it, or in a health insurance level, they can support the environment or make the environment for the users better, where the users themselves cannot do so much. And these insights, and I really want to stress that, right? Our back office is not only a bunch of graphs that we have, and then some health manager is left alone to figure out what they can do. So here we are giving very specific recommendations also to the health managers of how they can actionable improve the health of their people.
It sounds like kind of that difference between the data and what the data means, and kind of what people can do about it to change it. Yeah.
And therefore we also apply prognosis models on the population level, and here not on an individual level but on the population level, to highlight which types of features or variables within the population you can think about the variable being the well-being or activity or absence from work or whatever it can be, how they are going to develop in the future. And then we take into account again research studies, and we can apply or recommend good items that you can do for your people.
Yeah, I had someone yesterday asking me about this, kind of that prognosis modeling, and I do think in some of the spaces that we work, especially in prevention, it's not always seen as the biggest area that moves the needle for health costs. And we know that it's upstream to a lot of things that do really move the needle and do incur lots of costs. But I think that ability to demonstrate, what happens to prognosis of a population, what happens to this person 10 years down the line based on where they are now, I think helps to tie together that value story, right? Because we like building really cool and interesting technology, but we also need to make sure that it works and it survives in the market, which is not always necessarily taking up the best things for the most people. There needs to be something that gives us competitive edge and something that answer the question, why spend money on this now? And I think being able to do some of that prognosis mapping and work and seeing, hey, this is how you can get better visibility, predict your costs better, and understand what happens to the population down the line based on what they're doing now. I think is one of the ways we can try to anchor back to, here's why you should do good things now. That's not always easy.
Yeah. And one more thing here, it's also, so prognosis models are one thing, but also if you look at the average health of your population, then you just get the average health, right? And this may be a little bit better or a little bit worse than your peers. But at the end, it's just an average. And also what we are doing is it's called subgroup mining, right? So it's a specific form of unsupervised learning where you extract groups of people that exhibit a specific distribution of an outcome variable that is significantly different from the remaining population, right? That means we can find groups of people that have a significant worse health than all of the others in your specific population. Let it be the managers that are working in a specific office, or young females that are in the controlling area. And then you have the possibility to really approach them with specific measures and not to give measures for all of your, let's say, employees, but what you have here, but really focus on these groups of people with very specific types of intervention methods.
Yeah, I think that targeting approach, getting it to the right people, can also be helpful with resource allocation, right? Like I think about lots of people, lots of companies, or platforms that serve companies have great offerings, but the economics actually break down if the people that don't need them are using them and the people that do need them aren't. And so making sure that you can figure out, who are the people that actually have the most to gain from these available resources. I think that can, it's kind of like who doesn't need these things and therefore don't highlight it to those people. Fascinating.
Okay, Adrian.
Adrian, I think this is you, Jana, and then we can open up for questions. I don't know if there's anything specific on this. I know we talk about teaching, learning a lot, but if there's anything you wanted to share specifically about this before we open for questions.
No, I think we talked about our life cycles and our experiences quite a lot. So I think we just can go to the question and answer.
Okay, I'm going to open up the Q&A. Anyone to ask questions? While we're waiting, actually, I have a question. You talked a lot about prognosis modeling, and then creating motivation for the user. What are there any other roles that you envision for individuals in managing their health data and participating in data-driven healthcare initiatives?
Yes, thousands. Do we have ideas? Yes. So
I know, just as an individual, a lot of times I'm given data or insights about my own health, and I'm like, okay, what do I do in this? What is my role in this? How do I understand it?
Yeah. So I think a really big challenge right now, and something that that we're trying to approach, is that most of the medical system is set up for the information and decision making to be concentrated with the organizations that help that health system run. And sometimes it can be challenging for us as individuals to participate as meaningfully as we could in that journey if we don't understand, what's important for me, what should I be worrying about versus what do I not need to have a, medical degree in order to participate in this discussion? Where do I trust the providers and those trained around me? And how do I evaluate different things and figure out, when do I trust this provider? When does it make more sense to get a second opinion? And that's a really we could spend the next 20 years collaborating together and trying to solve like the next biggest problem in health. And that problem is maybe bigger than what we'll solve in the next 20 years. But I do think like what we recommend, so what people will experience in our products, and then also what we recommend for people is trying to figure out what's that one thing that you can do that's gonna be achievable for you, that you could focus on, that's going to move the needle. So, Yana talked about health literacy. Like, we probably have people on here who are like nutritionists and expert in diet. And then we have people who are just like, kind of, I eat the same thing every day, or I eat what I eat, and that's it. So like, if you can identify one area of your life, you're like, hey, I don't approach this area because I don't really know a lot about it. And I can figure out how to increase my comfortability with that area a little bit so that I can engage with it more meaningfully. I think that's a really good start. And then, what we're trying to do in creating good user experiences is leverage like natural human curiosity. It's like they're curious, they want to learn. If you make it easy, then they will. So how can we figure out a way to make easy paths that are created to bring someone on a journey of better health, not on a journey to spending money on this, advertised product on Instagram, or in this, clicking on this link that Google has decided they'll get the most money for clicks for. So like, how do we leverage things that we've learned about engagement and keep in like leveraging people's curiosity to bring them on a journey to better health? Yana, you're so polite. You always raise your hand when we're meeting. Jump in, cut me off, or I'll keep talking.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some, I think, very important point here. As Rick already laid out, there's so much that Google recommends you if someone pays for it. But curiosity is one thing, but you don't want to overwhelm the user, right? So we are doing our best to really provide the things that help. And as Rick said, we want to let the user focus on specific things, either because they are really needing that focus, or whether this is something that motivates you to start their health journey here. And I think that's super important, that we are shrinking those tremendous room of opportunities that you have to spend your money on healthcare products to little smaller things that really help you.
We have a question here. It's for those looking to integrate data-driven solutions into their practices. What would you offer or suggest to ensure a smooth implementation process? Yana already knows what I'm going to say on this. Oh, you go first. That's better.
You can go first, and I can add. I can share my experience here, right? Because we like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think it was not that common to apply data-driven product solutions. So, and I think the first step is the most important one, to focus on what you want to improve and start small, right? Don't start with deep neural networks on some fancy data set. Really go together with the product managers and with the users and think about how can you, with the data that you have, take the next best decision. And this is some very unsexy, probably, chart that you are creating, but this is the start, and this can only lead you to the process later on.
Yep. Yeah. And that was exactly what my advice was going to be: start small. Focus on trying to get as many iteration cycles in on pursuing that that goal. And the best way to do that is to make sure you're starting with something small and meaningful. Yana and I have both seen companies and groups and teams set up massive plans for how they're going to implement a data-driven solution. And if it's not feasible to implement, then yeah, it's never going to help. So it's a waste of time and money.
Nice.
Right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. The recording will be available afterwards and can be sent out to everyone that registered or was here. And if you have any other questions, comments, things like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we're happy to field questions, comments, concerns, or chat about some of the things that we're doing and ways we might be able to kind of partner together to solve some of these challenges together.